A credit alert hit my phone at lunch. New account activity. I hadn't applied for anything yet. Someone had opened a card in my name and started spending fast. Before I could even prove it, the real damage began. People started calling me a deadbeat dad. My name is Daniel. I'm 38 years old and I live just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm not the kind of guy who enjoys drama, and I've never been good at yelling my side of things over other people's noise. I'm an accounts payable supervisor for a mid-sized logistics company. Nothing glamorous but steady work, a steady paycheck, and a routine that used to feel like safety. For a long time, that routine was the only thing I had left that felt predictable. Because 2 years ago, my marriage ended in a way that didn't just change my relationship status, it changed how people looked at me, how they talked to me, and eventually, how they treated me when a lie about money spread faster than anything true ever does. My ex-wife Marissa and I were married for 9 years. We have one son, Noah, who's 7 now. When I talk about the divorce, I try to be fair, because I don't want my kid growing up thinking his parents' story is a war. But the honest version is this: the marriage died slowly, and then it ended quickly. Marissa has always been magnetic. She can make a room feel like it's tilting toward her. When she laughs, people laugh. When she says someone did her wrong, people clench their jaws like they were the ones betrayed. I used to think that was just charisma. Later, I learned it was something sharper. After we separated, we tried to keep things civil. We had a simple custody arrangement. Noah stayed with her during the school week and with me every other weekend, plus one weekday dinner. I paid child support automatically through the state system. It came straight out of my paycheck like clockwork, which I actually preferred. No confusion, no accusations about whether I'd paid or not. I downsized from our house to a 2-bedroom apartment. I bought Noah a bed shaped like a little race car because I wanted him to feel like my place wasn't just Dad's temporary space. I wanted it to be his too. I built a routine around him: pancakes on Saturday mornings, a walk to the park, silly movie nights where I pretended not to cry when he fell asleep leaning on my shoulder. Financially, I wasn't thriving, but I was managing. Divorce is expensive even when you don't fight like animals. I had a car payment, rent, child support, and the usual adult bills that never stop coming. But I tracked everything. I always have. Maybe that's why what happened next felt so unreal, because my entire life is built on noticing numbers. I noticed the first crack on an ordinary Tuesday. I was at my desk at work, doing what I always did during lunch, checking my bank app and moving money between checking and savings so nothing overdrafted when the bills hit. My phone buzzed with a push notification from my credit monitoring app. Not a big deal, those apps love sending dramatic alerts for tiny changes, but the message wasn't tiny. New account activity detected. I frowned. I hadn't applied for anything. I tapped the alert and saw a credit card listed that I didn't recognize. Same bank I'd used years ago, but a new card line. The credit limit made my stomach drop. $15,000. My first thought was a mistake, a data glitch. Someone else's account crossed into mine. That kind of thing happens, right? Then I refreshed. Another alert came through. Credit limit increase recorded. On a different card. My old card, the one I barely used anymore, had jumped from a $4,000 limit to $12,000. I sat there with my sandwich untouched, staring at my screen like the numbers would rearrange themselves into something normal if I just waited long enough. I opened the bank app, the one linked to that older card. I didn't even have it in my wallet anymore. I kept it at home in a drawer in case of emergencies. I used it maybe once every few months to keep it active. There was a balance, not a small one, not a maybe I forgot I bought gas one. It was over $9,000. I could feel my pulse in my ears. I clicked into the transaction list and scrolled so fast my thumb started to shake. Charges I didn't recognize piled up like bricks. Furniture store, electronics, hotel deposits, multiple purchases at a boutique clothing place I'd never heard of. A series of transactions that looked like someone was building a new life on my credit. I sat back in my chair and tried to breathe like a normal person. Because the worst part wasn't even the debt itself. Not yet. The worst part was the feeling that someone had been inside my identity, wearing it like a jacket, and I didn't know how long they'd been doing it. I called the bank immediately. I stepped outside the building into the parking lot because I didn't want my coworkers hearing the panic rising in my voice. The automated system asked me a dozen questions. Then I got a representative. I gave my name, verified my information, and told her I was seeing accounts and balances I didn't recognize. She wasn't shocked. That's what scared me even more, how normal it sounded to her. "Sir," she said, calm and crisp, "I do see the new account. It was opened 3 months ago, and your existing line was increased last month. By who? I asked. I didn't request that. There was typing. Then, the requests were made over the phone. Both were approved through standard verification. Over the phone. I stared across the parking lot at my car like it might offer an answer. So someone called pretending to be me? I asked. It appears the caller passed verification, she said carefully, the way people talk when they're skirting around blame. If you believe this is fraudulent, we can open a dispute. But I do want to be transparent. Phone approvals are treated as authorized when verification is successful. Okay, I said, forcing myself to stay steady. Open the dispute, immediately, and freeze everything. She transferred me to the fraud department. I repeated my story. They asked if I still had the cards in my possession. I told them I didn't even have the new one, because I never asked for it in the first place. They asked if I'd shared my social security number or password with anyone. No, I said. And then after a beat I added, my ex-wife would know my information. We were married. The silence on the line was short, but heavy. I understand, the fraud agent said. We'll begin an investigation. You should also file a police report and place a fraud alert with the credit bureaus. A police report. That was the moment it became real. Not a bank error, not a weird glitch, a crime. I drove home that evening in a fog. I barely remember the highway. I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. I remember thinking about Noah and how everything in my life could be wrecked by something I didn't do. How easy it was to ruin someone just by touching their credit. When I got home, I pulled out my laptop and went through my credit reports line by line. That's when I saw the full picture, the new card, the limit increase, and a personal loan inquiry I hadn't noticed yet. The totals weren't just scary, they were humiliating. When I added everything up, the charges on the existing card, the new card balance, and the fees stacking month after month, it came to just under $28,000. $28,000 in my name. Money I'd never touched. Money that was now attached to me like a disease. I did what any responsible person would do. I documented everything. Screenshots, dates, transaction lists, the names of the bank employees I spoke to. I filed a police report online because the station was backed up and they told me it could take hours to get seen in person. I placed fraud alerts with the credit bureaus. I changed every password I could think of. I even locked down my social security number through the IRS PIN system, because at that point I didn't know what else had been compromised. For the first few days, I told myself the truth would carry me. That banks dealt with fraud all the time. That the system was built for this. Then the second part happened. The part that didn't just threaten my credit score, it threatened my reputation. It started with a text from my sister. Hey, are you okay financially? Mom said you're in some kind of trouble. My stomach tightened. I called her immediately. What are you talking about? There was hesitation on the other end. Marissa told Mom you haven't been paying your bills and that you're behind on stuff. She said she's worried you're going to, I don't know, drag Noah into it. My throat went dry. Did she say that? I asked. She said you're basically broke, my sister said, trying to soften it, and that you keep making excuses. My face got hot. Not from anger exactly, more like that sick heat of embarrassment. The kind that makes you feel exposed even when you've done nothing wrong. I pay my child support, I said too quickly, too sharply. It's automatic. And I'm not behind on anything. Someone opened accounts in my name. There was a pause where I could feel my sister deciding whether to believe me. I'm just telling you what Mom said, she replied. I'm on your side. After I hung up, I sat on my couch staring at the wall, trying to process the fact that the debt wasn't just a financial problem anymore. It had become a story, a narrative, and Marissa was telling it first. Over the next week, the little signals piled up. A friend from high school who I barely talked to sent a message. Everything good, man. Heard you're going through it. A coworker, Denise, who usually joked with me in the break room, started looking at me with a kind of careful sympathy that made me want to disappear. The worst part is I didn't even know what she'd heard, only that she'd heard something. Then the final gut punch. I picked Noah up for our weekend, and Marissa met me at the curb instead of letting me come to the door like usual. Her arms were crossed. Her smile was thin. Hey, she said brightly, loud enough for Noah to hear but aimed like a dart at me. Just a reminder, Noah needs his winter jacket, and I already paid for his school pictures, so please don't forget again. I blinked. Forget what? She tilted her head with fake concern. Daniel, come on, people are asking questions. I'm trying to protect Noah here. People, I repeated. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. You can't keep living like this. If you're going to be irresponsible with money, at least don't let it spill onto your kid. I felt like I'd been slapped. I wanted to explode. I wanted to shout right there on the sidewalk that someone had stolen my identity, that I was fighting it, that I had proof. But Noah was standing between us, holding his little backpack, watching our faces like a referee in a game he didn't understand. So I did what I always did. I swallowed it. I'm handling it, I said tightly. I'll bring his jacket. Marissa smiled again, satisfied, like she'd just planted a flag. That night, after Noah went to sleep, I lay awake in my apartment with my phone on my chest, staring at the ceiling. I kept replaying that moment, her words, irresponsible, deadbeat, people asking questions, and that was when I understood the real problem. The debt was one threat, but the story attached to it was another. If Marissa could convince enough people that I was the one who ran up those charges, that I was the kind of man who couldn't pay his bills, couldn't manage his life, couldn't be trusted, then every single thing I said afterward would sound like an excuse, and I couldn't afford that. Not because I cared about gossip, but because I cared about Noah. Because reputations seep into custody arrangements, into school conversations, into the way other parents look at you at birthday parties. They seep into courtrooms if things ever get ugly. And I could feel something ugly forming. The next morning I called the bank again, and I didn't ask nicely. I told them I needed to understand exactly how those requests were made, what verification meant, and what records existed, because someone had used my name to bury me, and then had the nerve to stand in front of my life and call me the deadbeat. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to post cryptic rants online. I wasn't going to beg people to believe me. But I was going to get the truth from the only place that couldn't be swayed by charm. The bank, the paperwork, the records, because if there was one thing I knew, it was this. Numbers don't care who tells the story first. They only care what's true. On Monday morning, I didn't even bother making coffee. I went straight to my laptop at the kitchen table, pulled up my notes from the previous calls, and dialed the bank again with one goal: get past the polite script and into whatever system they use to approve those requests. After the usual security questions, I said, I need to know exactly what verification was used on the phone. Was it just my date of birth and the last four of my social? Or was there voice verification? The representative hesitated, like I'd used a phrase I wasn't supposed to know. Sir, that's internal, she said. I kept my voice steady. I'm not asking for a favor. I'm disputing fraudulent accounts. I need to understand how someone got through your process. I can transfer you to our account security team, she offered, and the way she said it told me it was going to be another loop. Please do. While I waited on hold, I stared at the sticky note I'd written the total on, $27,842.17. It looked like a number from someone else's life, the kind of number you see in a headline, not on your own credit report. A new person came on the line. Deeper voice, more confident. Account security. This is Mark. I repeated my name and explained everything again. I tried to keep the emotion out of it and stick to facts. I didn't request a new card. I didn't request a limit increase. I didn't make these purchases, and my ex-wife had access to my personal information. Mark listened, then said something that made my chest tighten. Mr. Reeves, our notes show both calls passed our identity verification and our voice authentication. I sat up straight. Voice authentication. So you do have a recording? We do record calls, yes. Then I need you to pull the audio, I said, because it wasn't me. There was another pause, and I could almost hear him choosing words that wouldn't get him in trouble. I'm not authorized to release call recordings directly to customers, he said. They're part of our internal fraud investigation process. So what am I supposed to do? I asked. Just wait while the balance grows and you report me delinquent? The accounts are under review, he said. In the meantime, I'd recommend you continue making minimum payments to avoid negative credit reporting. I let out a short, humorless laugh. You want me to pay fraudulent debt? It's a recommendation, he said quickly, not a requirement. Mark, I said, I have child support, rent. I'm not paying almost $30,000 I didn't spend just to protect my score while your review runs for months. His tone cooled. I understand this is frustrating, sir, but our process has timelines. What are the timelines? Up to 90 days, he said. Sometimes longer if it involves voice authentication disputes. 90 days. I pictured 3 months of Marissa telling everyone I was drowning in debt, 3 months of interest stacking, 3 months of being treated like a liar while I waited for some invisible committee to decide whether my life was worth fixing. Okay, I said, forcing calm. Then I want written confirmation that the accounts are under dispute and that negative reporting will be paused. I can submit a request, he said. No guarantees. Submit it, I said. After I hung up, I just sat there listening to the refrigerator hum. I wasn't even angry yet. I was in that hollow space before anger where your brain tries to protect you by going numb. Then my phone buzzed again. Another credit alert. Balance increase detected. It was one of the cards. Another charge. Another reminder that whoever was doing this wasn't stopping just because I'd noticed. That was the moment I realized something important. This wasn't some random hacker. Random hackers don't keep spending once the victim starts calling banks and filing police reports. Random hackers cash out and vanish. This person was comfortable. This person believed I couldn't touch them. And as much as I didn't want to admit it, the only person in my life who fit that kind of confidence was Marissa. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I had pattern. That afternoon I left work early and drove to the police station anyway. My online report had been accepted, but accepted didn't mean taken seriously. It was just a reference number in a system. At the front desk, a tired-looking officer glanced at my paperwork and asked, "So you're saying you've got fraudulent credit cards in your name?" "Yes," I said, "and I suspect it's someone I know." He raised his eyebrows slightly. "Family. My ex-wife," I said, and the words tasted bitter. He sighed the way people sigh when they've seen the same mess 100 times. "Do you have evidence she did it?" "Not yet," I said, "but she knew all my information. She's been telling people I'm a deadbeat, and the spending lines up with her lifestyle." He nodded, not convinced but not dismissive either. "We can document your statement, but the bank's going to be the one with the paper trail. Addresses, phone numbers, recordings. You'll need that." "I'm trying to get it," I said. He handed my report back. "If you want an investigator assigned, it can take time, but you can also talk to your attorney if this impacts custody." Custody. That word hit like a punch because it was the thing I'd been trying not to think about. Marissa didn't even have to take me to court to hurt me. She could just plant enough doubt that if we ever ended up in front of a judge, I'd walk in already stained. That night, after dropping Noah back off, I sat in my car outside Marissa's townhouse for a full minute before I drove away. I watched her through the window, moving around the kitchen. Noah's small silhouette bounced at her side. It looked like a normal family scene, and I wondered how someone could make you feel like a criminal while smiling at your kid. On the drive home, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I needed to. "Daniel Reeves?" a woman asked. "Yes. This is Lila from Redwood Collections. This call may be recorded. We're calling regarding an outstanding balance associated with your Redwood bank account. We need to discuss your past due minimum payment." For a second, I couldn't speak. "Collections already?" The bank had told me the account was under review. "I filed a fraud dispute," I said. "Those accounts aren't mine." "According to our records, the account is valid," she replied in that smooth, practiced tone. "If you're refusing to pay, I need to note that." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "You can note whatever you want. I have a police report number. I have an open fraud case with the bank. I want your supervisor." The conversation escalated into the same nightmare loop. They couldn't discuss internal bank investigations. I needed to work it out with the original creditor. They had a job to do. The whole time, I felt my face burning with a kind of shame that didn't belong to me. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, my hands were shaking. Inside, I opened my laptop and started digging for something I hadn't wanted to do, gather evidence the hard way. I pulled up every transaction again and looked for anything that might link to a location. Some purchases were online and vague, but a few were physical stores with addresses listed, places close to where Marissa lived. Then there were the deliveries. Several charges were from a home goods company, the kind that delivers bulky items. A couple had delivery fee attached. That meant someone had ordered furniture, had it delivered somewhere, and paid with my credit. I called the merchant directly, gave them the order numbers listed on my statement, and explained it was fraud. The customer service rep was sympathetic until she hit the wall of policy. "I'm sorry," she said. "We can't release delivery addresses unless you're law enforcement or you provide a subpoena. So I'm just supposed to accept someone can order furniture in my name, and you can't tell me where it went?" I asked. "I understand how that sounds," she said gently, "but that's the rule." I hung up, jaw clenched, and wrote it down anyway. Order numbers, dates, times. If I couldn't get the address now, I'd get it later. Over the next week, My life turned into two parallel tracks. On the surface, I kept going to work. I kept showing up for Noah. I cooked the same basic meals. I answered emails and approved invoices like my own financial world wasn't collapsing. Underneath, every spare moment was spent on the fraud case. Phone calls, dispute forms, certified letters. I became the person who knew which department extension led to which dead end. I learned the difference between investigation opened and investigation assigned. I learned how banks say we're looking into it when what they really mean is please stop calling. The smear campaign didn't slow down either. My mom called one evening and I could hear the tension in her voice before she even said hello. "Daniel," she began, "Marissa told me something that has me worried." I swallowed. "What did she tell you?" "She said you're in debt," my mom said softly. "That you've been living beyond your means and it's catching up to you." I closed my eyes. "Mom, listen to me. I'm a victim of identity theft. Someone opened a card and increased my limit. I'm disputing it." There was a pause. "Marissa said you always have an excuse." That sentence hurt more than it should have, because it wasn't really about Marissa. It was about my own mother hearing my name paired with words like debt, irresponsible, excuse, and not immediately rejecting it. "Mom," I said carefully, "have I ever missed child support?" "No," she admitted. "Have I ever asked you for money?" "No." "Then why would you believe I suddenly turned into a deadbeat?" I asked. She didn't have an answer. She just said, "I'm trying to understand." After we hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall again, feeling that same hollow place, but now it had something inside it, something hot. Because it wasn't just that Marissa was spending money in my name, it was that she was enjoying what it did to me. A week later, the bank mailed me an interim letter, official letterhead, formal language. It confirmed the dispute was active and said they would continue to investigate. Nothing about pausing reporting, nothing about collections, but one line caught my eye. Requests were completed via teleserve with voiceprint verification. Voiceprint. It wasn't just a call recording. It was a system that analyzed your voice like a fingerprint. And if that system existed, then there would be a match score. A note, a flag, something. I called again, more determined than ever. This time I asked for a supervisor and didn't budge until I got one. A woman named Cynthia came on. Her voice was calm, but her patience had limits. I could hear it. "I'm requesting the details of the voiceprint verification used," I said. "Not the audio itself, just the verification notes, the match score, any system flags." "We do not provide those details to customers," she said. "I'm not asking out of curiosity," I replied. "Those details determine whether your bank wrongfully approved fraudulent requests. I need them for my records." "Sir," she said, "if you pursue legal action, your attorney can request information through proper channels." "Then I want it noted," I said, "that I requested it and you refused." A beat of silence. "I will note your account," she said, clipped. "Thank you," I said. "And I'm also filing a complaint with the CFPB." That got her attention, like I'd finally spoken in a language the bank understood. "You're welcome to do that," she said carefully. "But please understand it may not change the outcome of the investigation." "It will change something," I said, "because I'm not going to sit quietly while you treat me like the criminal." When I ended the call, I felt a small, ugly satisfaction. Not because I'd won anything, because I hadn't, but because for the first time, I'd pushed back in a way that didn't rely on anyone believing my feelings. That night, I opened a folder on my computer labeled Marissa. I hated myself for doing it because it made me feel petty, like I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. But then I thought of Noah, and I kept going. I wrote down every suspicious connection I could think of, the timing of the new account opening, the way Marissa's social media suddenly showed a fresh start vibe, the fact she'd started showing off new outfits and home decor like she'd gotten a raise. And then there was the smallest detail, something I almost missed. One of the bank's letters listed the last 4 digits of the phone number used to initiate the limit increase. They masked most of it, but the last 4 were visible. I stared at those numbers until my eyes hurt. Because I knew them. Not perfectly, not like I could swear it in court yet, but like a song lyric you don't realize you've memorized until it comes on. Those last 4 digits were the same as Marissa's old number from years ago, back when we were married, the one she used before she switched carriers. My mouth went dry. I grabbed my phone and searched through my contacts history, old emails, anything. I found it, an old thread where she'd texted me about picking up groceries. Same last 4. The room felt suddenly too quiet, like my apartment was holding its breath with me. It wasn't proof. It wasn't enough to accuse her outright, but it was a thread, and for the first time since this started, I didn't feel like I was swinging blindly at smoke. I felt like I had something real to pull on. Still, I couldn't shake one thought. If the bank's voice print system had actually done its job, how did her call get through? Unless it hadn't. Unless it had flagged something, and someone ignored it. And if that was true, then somewhere in a bank file, buried under procedure and standard verification, there was a note that could either save me or prove just how badly I'd been set up. The next morning, I went to work with that last 4 digits clue burning a hole in my brain. I kept doing my job, approving invoices, answering vendor emails, nodding through a meeting about quarterly budgets, but I was barely there. Because the more I thought about it, the more obvious it became. I didn't just need to prove I didn't make those calls. I needed to prove someone else did. And I needed to do it without making one mistake that could be used against me later. At lunch, I sat in my car and filed the CFPB complaint. I'd never done anything like that before. I typed slowly, choosing words like I was writing something a judge might read, not a customer service ticket. I explained, fraudulent credit card opened and limit increased via phone. Bank claims voice print verification was used. Bank refuses to provide verification notes. Collections contacted me while dispute pending. I have a police report number and documented timeline. When I hit submit, my hands were sweaty. It felt ridiculous to be scared of a form, but the fear wasn't about the form. It was about what it meant. I was officially escalating this beyond please help. That evening, I called a local consumer law attorney. I found him through a referral from a coworker who dealt with identity theft years ago. His name was Eric Shaw. When I told him the short version, he didn't react with surprise. He reacted with interest. "Tell me exactly how the bank says the account was opened," he said. "By phone," I replied. "They claim voice print verification, and the last 4 digits on one letter match my ex-wife's old number." Eric let out a low whistle. "Okay, that's potentially very useful. So what do I do?" I asked. "You do not confront her," he said immediately. I blinked. I wasn't planning to. "Good," he said. "Because the second you accuse her directly, she can twist it. She can claim harassment, intimidation, whatever she wants. What we need is documentation." "From the bank," I said. "From the bank," Eric confirmed. "Call logs, authentication notes, shipping addresses tied to the purchases, and ideally the call recordings. If they used voice print, there should be a match score or a confidence rating." "They won't give me anything," I said. "They don't have to give you everything," he replied. "Not casually, but we can request records under the Fair Credit Billing Act process, and if they stonewall, we have options. Also, your CFPB complaint will light a fire under someone." I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that until my shoulders loosened. "What about the debt in the meantime?" I asked. "Do not pay it," Eric said. "Not unless we decide strategically. Paying can muddy the argument that it wasn't yours. If you pay, they'll say you acknowledged it." My stomach tightened. "But collections, keep records of every call," he said. "If they violate the rules while it's in dispute, that helps you." After we hung up, I felt something close to hope, thin and cautious, but real. Then my phone buzzed with a message from Marissa. "Can you switch weekends? Noah has a birthday party." I stared at it for a long time. On the surface, it was normal co-parenting stuff, but now every message from her felt like it had a shadow behind it, like a second meaning. I replied, "Sure, what time?" A minute later she sent, "Thanks. Also, please don't forget child support is due soon." My jaw clenched. Child support came automatically. She knew that. She knew it down to the day. She wanted the reminder to exist in writing. She wanted the idea. "Daniel needs to be reminded to pay, to sit there like a stain." I typed back. "It's auto-deducted like always," she replied with a thumbs up. I set my phone down and stared at my kitchen sink like it was the only stable thing in the room. That night I did something I'd avoided because it felt invasive. I opened Marissa's public social media and scrolled. There weren't any direct admissions, nothing stupid like "love my new furniture," but there were hints, photos of a cozy refresh in her living room, a new sectional sofa, a coffee table that definitely wasn't from a thrift store, a selfie in front of a full-length mirror with shopping bags in the corner. Then I saw the caption under one post, "Starting over feels expensive but worth it." I could practically hear her voice saying it out loud. I took screenshots and saved them in that folder. Not because it was proof of fraud, but because it was proof of timing, proof of lifestyle, proof that she had new things right when my credit exploded. The next day I got an email from the bank. Your case has been assigned to an investigator. No name, no direct contact, just that line. It should have made me feel better. Instead, it made me feel like I'd just been transferred from one waiting room to another. That evening, I received another collections call. Different rep this time. Same script. I didn't argue. I simply said, "This account is in active dispute with the bank. I have a police report. I'm requesting all communication in writing." The rep paused. "We can note your request." "Do it," I said. Then I recorded the date and time in my notebook. It became a ritual. Call comes in. Heart rate spikes. I keep my voice flat. I log the details. I wasn't just surviving the calls anymore. I was collecting them like evidence. 3 days later, the CFPB forwarded my complaint to the bank, and I got a formal acknowledgement letter from Redwood Bank's Executive Resolution team. Executive Resolution sounded like a superhero unit until I read the letter and realized it was just a nicer font for the same corporate language. Still, it included something new, a case manager's name. Her name was Priya, and she actually answered when I called. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "I've reviewed your file. I see the dispute and the fraud claim. I also see you've requested voiceprint verification notes." "Yes," I said, "because that's the only thing that matters. Either the voice was mine or it wasn't. I can't release internal fraud scoring," Priya said, and my hope dipped. "But," she continued, "I can confirm whether voiceprint verification returned an acceptable match." I sat up and did it. There was a small pause. "The authentication result is complicated." My skin went cold. "What does that mean?" "It means the system did not return a clean match the way it typically would," she said carefully. "However, the call was processed, and the representative followed protocol." I blinked hard, like I hadn't heard her correctly. "So the voice print didn't match," I said, trying to pin her down. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She said, "It did not return a clean match." My throat tightened. "Then why was it approved?" Priya exhaled softly. "There are circumstances where other verification factors can override. Security questions, account history, caller confidence. I'm not saying it should have happened. I'm saying it can happen." I felt anger rising, hot and sharp. "So your system flagged it, and you still let someone open a card in my name?" "I didn't say it was flagged," she corrected. "I said it was not a clean match." "Priya," I said, "I'm trying to keep my credit from being destroyed and my reputation from being dragged through the mud. I need something concrete." "I understand," she replied, and for the first time she sounded like she actually meant it. "Here's what I can do. I can escalate the request to our fraud analytics team to re-review the call recordings. If there are inconsistencies, we can potentially resolve faster." My heart pounded. "Re-review the recordings, so you will listen to the audio?" "Yes," she said, "and we'll compare it to your existing voice print if you have one on file from prior calls." I swallowed. "I do," I said. "I've been with your bank for years. I see several authenticated calls from the last decade," she said. "That helps." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. But it lasted about 30 seconds, because then Priya said, "I also need to ask, has anyone else had access to your personal information? A spouse, family member, or former spouse?" The question was careful, but the implication was sharp. "Yes," I said. "My ex-wife would have everything." "Okay," Priya replied. "We'll note it. And I want to be clear, this is not an accusation. It's simply part of the investigation." When we ended the call, I sat there staring at my phone. Re-review the recordings, compare the voice print, faster resolution. It was everything I'd wanted, and yet I couldn't shake the uneasiness. Because if Priya listened to the calls, she'd hear what I was starting to suspect wasn't just a fake voice. She'd hear intent. The next weekend, I took Noah to the park. He ran around with a soccer ball while I sat on a bench pretending to be normal. Parents around me chatted about school and sports and weekend plans. It felt like a different universe. Noah eventually plopped down beside me, cheeks pink from running. "Mom says you're mad at her," he said casually, like he was talking about the weather. My stomach dropped. "Did she say that?" He shrugged. "She said you guys don't get along because of money stuff." I forced myself to breathe slowly. "Noah, you don't have to worry about that," I said. "That's grown-up stuff." He leaned into my side the way little kids do when they still trust the world. "Are we gonna be okay?" That nearly broke me. "We're okay," I promised him, even though I wasn't sure who we included anymore. "I've got you." On the drive back to Marissa's place, Noah fell asleep. I parked outside her townhouse and watched him in the rearview mirror for a moment, his mouth slightly open, hair sticking up in the back, and I made a decision. If Marissa was doing this, she wasn't just stealing money. She was stealing stability from our kid. When she came outside, she put on that same practiced expression. Pleasant, public, harmless, the kind of face that made you sound crazy if you ever said she was cruel. "Hey," she said, opening the back door. "Did he eat?" "Yes," I replied. She buckled him in for a second, then looked at me, eyes sharp. "I heard you called the bank again," she said quietly. My chest tightened. "How would you hear that?" She smiled like she'd been waiting for me to ask. "You're not subtle, Daniel. People talk." My mouth went dry. People again. She closed the car door gently, like she was putting away something delicate, then stepped closer. "You know," she said, "if you're struggling financially, you could just say that. I would be more understanding if you weren't always playing the victim." I stared at her, trying to read what was behind her eyes. Was she bluffing? Fishing? Or did she actually know what the bank had on file? "I'm not struggling," I said. "Someone used my name." Her smile widened by a fraction. "Sure." The way she said that single word, "sure," was like a fingerprint. It wasn't disbelief. It was enjoyment. I wanted to say, "I know it was you." I wanted to demand she tell me where the furniture was delivered. I wanted to ask her how she slept at night. But Eric's warning echoed in my head, "Do not confront her." So I did the only thing I could. I looked her in the eye and said, "This will be handled through official channels." For the first time, her expression flickered, just a hairline crack. Then she recovered and said, "Whatever you need to tell yourself." I drove home shaking, but not from fear, from restraint. 2 days later, Priya emailed me again. "Mr. Reeves, our team has requested the call recordings for reanalysis. We may contact you for a live voice sample to compare." A live voice sample. That meant they were taking it seriously enough to test it. I forwarded the email to Eric. He replied within minutes. "Good. Save everything. Don't speak to Marissa about this." That night I slept for maybe 3 hours. Every time I drifted off, I'd jolt awake imagining Marissa finding out the bank was reviewing the recordings and rushing to cover her tracks. And that was the sick thing about it. Once you suspect someone close to you, everything they do looks like a move in a game. Every delay feels intentional. Every silence feels strategic. 3 days later, Priya called. "Daniel," she said, and she sounded different, tighter, more serious. "Yeah," I said, heart pounding. "What's going on?" "We reviewed the first call," she said. "The one related to the new account opening." My throat tightened. "And we're still processing," she said quickly, "but I need to ask you a question. On that call, there's a second voice." The room went cold. "A second voice," I repeated. "Yes," Priya said, "in the background, not always clear, but present. It sounds like someone prompting the caller." I couldn't breathe properly for a second, because that detail, someone prompting the caller, was exactly the kind of thing that didn't happen with random identity theft. That was intimate fraud. Someone who knew you. Someone who needed help answering questions they didn't know. Someone being coached. Priya continued, "We can't make conclusions yet, but I wanted you to be aware we're taking this seriously." I swallowed hard. "Priya, does the caller sound like me?" There was a pause long enough to feel like a confession. Then she said, carefully, "It does not sound consistent with your authenticated calls." My eyes stung, and it wasn't even relief. It was the release of weeks of being treated like I was lying. "So you can prove it," I whispered. "We're working toward that," she said. "Once the analysis is complete, we'll determine next steps, including account closure and reversal of charges if fraud is confirmed." Fraud is confirmed. I hung up and just sat there, hands on my knees, staring at the floor. For the first time, it felt like the truth wasn't just something I believed. It was something recorded. And somewhere in a bank server, in a file I hadn't heard yet, there was a voice that wasn't mine, spending my name like cash, while another voice in the background guided them. I didn't know whose voice it was, but I knew one thing. When that audio came out, the story Marissa had been telling everyone was going to collapse in a way she couldn't charm her way out of. I didn't tell anyone about Priya's second voice comment. Not my mom, not my sister, not even my closest friend. The only person I forwarded it to was Eric. Because the moment you say, "My ex is stealing my identity," out loud, people don't just hear the accusation. They hear the bitterness. They hear the divorce. They hear everything they already believe about couples who split and then try to destroy each other. But a bank recording doesn't care about any of that. A bank recording is either you or it isn't. The next day, Priya emailed me a link to schedule a voice verification re-enrollment. It was basically a live call where I'd read a series of phrases so their system could create a fresh voice print. She also warned me not to do it in a noisy environment. I did it in my apartment with the windows shut, the TV off, and my phone on speaker. I felt ridiculous reading lines like, "My voice is my password" in my kitchen. But I did it slowly, clearly, like my entire future depended on every syllable. Because it did. At the end, the automated voice said, "Enrollment complete." 10 minutes later, Priya called. "Thanks for doing that so quickly," she said. "Tell me you've got something," I replied. "I can't disclose the analysis results yet," she said, which made my stomach sink, "but I can tell you the re-review is progressing. We're working through multiple calls." "Multiple calls," I repeated. "How many are there?" "At least 3 associated with your account changes," she said. "The new card opening, the limit increase, and a change of address request." My heart stopped for half a beat. "Change of address?" "Yes," she said. "A request was made to change the mailing address for the new card shortly after it was opened." I felt cold all over, because that answered the question of why I never got the card. It hadn't gone to my apartment. It had been sent somewhere else. Somewhere whoever did this could access it easily. "Where was it sent?" I asked. "I can't provide that over the phone at this stage," Priya said. "But it is part of the fraud review." I wanted to slam my fist against the table. "Priya, I'm not asking out of curiosity. Whoever did this has my information and is using it actively." "I know," she said, and her voice softened. "Please understand, we're trying to do this correctly so the resolution is final." Final. That word mattered. When we hung up, I sat there thinking about that address change request. It wasn't a random criminal move. It was someone who knew exactly how to steer a bank system without triggering too many alarms. Open the account, then reroute the card, then spend fast while the victim still thinks everything's normal. And the whole time they were telling people I was the problem. That week the social pressure tightened again. My mom invited me to Sunday dinner, which was already unusual since things had been tense. I went because I didn't want Marissa to be the only person feeding my family information about me. When I walked in, my stepdad didn't hug me the way he usually did. He gave me that quick shoulder pat men do when they're trying to be polite. We ate in that stiff, quiet way families eat when there's something hanging over the table. Halfway through dinner, my mom said, "Marissa mentioned Noah's school called about lunch account issues." My fork paused midair. "What?" She said she had to cover it. My mom added carefully, "That you hadn't been sending money." My stomach turned. Noah's lunch account isn't connected to me. The school bills the parent on file. My stepdad finally spoke. "Daniel, she's worried you're drowning financially. If you are, maybe you need to." "I'm not drowning," I snapped, sharper than I meant to. Then I forced my voice down. "Someone stole my identity. I'm not behind on anything, and child support is automatically paid." My mom's eyes flicked away. She said the banks are calling her too. That made my blood run cold. "Why would banks be calling her?" She said, "Because of you," my mom replied. "Because your debt is affecting Noah." For a second I couldn't speak. Marissa wasn't just smearing me. She was weaving Noah into it. She was making it sound like her responsible mother role was saving our child from my supposed irresponsibility. I put my fork down. "Mom, I need you to listen to me. She is lying, and I'm going to prove it." My stepdad's expression hardened. "You better be careful, Daniel. Accusing the mother of your child like that." "I'm not accusing," I said, even though I was. "I'm telling you what's happening. The bank is reviewing call recordings." My mom looked up sharply. "Recordings?" "Yes," I said. "And they told me the caller doesn't sound like me." The table went silent. For a moment I saw the shift. Not belief exactly, but doubt. Doubt is powerful. Doubt is the first crack in a story. But then my mom said quietly, "Marissa told us you're trying to set her up." I stared at her. "Set her up with what?" She said, "You're angry about the divorce," my mom continued, voice trembling, "and you're trying to paint her as a criminal." I actually laughed, but it wasn't funny. "Mom, I'm the one who got hit with $28,000. I'm the one getting collections calls. I'm the one being called a deadbeat. What part of that sounds like I'm setting her up?" My stepdad's jaw worked as if he wanted to argue, but he didn't have anything clean to say. I stood, pushed my chair in gently, and said, "I'm going to handle this, but I'm done defending myself against gossip. If you want to believe her story, you can. I'll bring proof when I have it." I left before my voice cracked. In the car, I gripped the steering wheel and just sat there. The anger was there, but deeper than anger was something worse. Grief. Not for the marriage. for the fact that Marissa could poison my own family against me with nothing but her tone. When I got home, Eric called. "I received your latest bank update," he said. "Change of address is big. It supports intentional fraud." "They won't tell me where it was changed to," I said. "They don't have to yet," he replied. "But we can request it formally. I'm going to draft a preservation letter to the bank demanding they preserve all recordings, logs, IP addresses for online sessions, call metadata, and internal notes." "Can you do that?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "And the moment they get that letter, it becomes harder for anyone to lose anything." That word "lose" made my stomach twist, because I'd been thinking it too. If someone inside the bank had ignored a voiceprint mismatch, they might be motivated to let the evidence blur. "Also," Eric continued, "I want you to stop talking about specifics with your family. Keep it vague, don't argue, let the evidence speak." I exhaled slowly. "Okay. And Daniel," he added, "if Marissa's been telling people you're a deadbeat, she may escalate when she senses control slipping. Be prepared." I didn't fully understand what he meant until 2 days later. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was in the office when my phone buzzed with a message from Marissa. "We need to talk about Noah's expenses." I didn't answer right away. I was learning the hard way that every conversation with her turned into a weapon. Then she called. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, she texted again. "I'm serious. If you don't respond, I'll handle it another way." That phrase, "another way," made my skin prickle. I called her back during my break, with my voice as neutral as I could make it. "What's going on?" I asked. "You've been telling people I'm stealing your money," she said immediately. My heart kicked. "I haven't told people that." "My mom heard it," she snapped. "From someone at Noah's school." "That's not me," I said. She made a sound like she didn't believe me, then said, "Either way, you need to stop, and you need to pay for half of Noah's extracurriculars this month. I'm not carrying you." "I already pay support," I said. "That's not enough," she replied. "Not with you wrecking your credit and making everyone nervous." I felt my jaw tighten. My credit is being wrecked by fraud, and somehow I'm the villain, she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're unbelievable." I didn't raise my voice. I couldn't. If I did, she'd get exactly what she wanted, emotion she could point to later. "Marissa," I said quietly, "the bank is reviewing the call recordings." There was a tiny pause, just a breath. Then she said too casually, "Oh yeah? Good. Then they'll see it was you." The line went quiet after she said it, like she'd tossed a match and was waiting to see if it caught. I swallowed. "If it was me, I'd have the card." She laughed. "You always have an excuse." Then she hung up. That pause she'd had, the half-second of silence, stayed with me all day, because it sounded like surprise, like she hadn't expected me to be that close to something real. That night, Priya emailed me again. "Mr. Reeves, we are nearing completion of the voice analysis. Please be available tomorrow afternoon." My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Tomorrow afternoon." I forwarded it to Eric. He replied, "Good. Ask for written findings. If they offer a meeting, accept. Do not agree to anything verbally without documentation." I barely slept. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. Every time my phone vibrated, my stomach flipped. I kept picturing a bank employee clicking play on an audio file and hearing a voice that wasn't mine, saying my name like it belonged to them. At 2:17 p.m., Priya called. "Daniel," she said, "I have an update." I stood up and walked into an empty conference room, shutting the door behind me. "Tell me," I said. "Our fraud analytics team completed the comparison," she said. "The caller's voice on the account opening request does not match your enrolled voice print." I gripped the edge of the table so hard my fingers hurt. "So you're confirming fraud?" "Yes," she said. "Based on voice print mismatch and supporting anomalies, we are confirming unauthorized activity." My eyes stung. I blinked hard. "What happens now?" "We are initiating charge reversals and account closures," she said, "and we will issue letters to the credit bureaus correcting reporting." A shaky breath escaped me. "And the recordings?" There was a pause. "Daniel, given the severity, we want to handle this carefully. I can arrange an in-person meeting at your local branch with a fraud specialist present. We can go over the findings and provide documentation." "In person," I repeated. "Yes," she said. "Tomorrow morning at 10, if you're available." Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I pictured sitting in a bank office while they slid papers across a desk. I pictured hearing the audio with my own ears. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there." "One more thing," Priya added, her tone turning cautious. "There is evidence on at least one call of a second individual prompting the caller, as I mentioned earlier. We will include that in the internal report. I swallowed. Will that be in the documentation? It may be summarized, she said. Not always fully transcribed. I need it, I said, voice tight, because someone is calling me a deadbeat to my family. I need proof. I understand, she said. We'll do what we can within policy. When I ended the call, I sat down in the conference room chair and stared at the wall, breathing like I'd just run up a flight of stairs. The bank confirmed it. Not maybe, not under review. Confirmed unauthorized activity. And tomorrow, they were going to put it in writing. I walked back to my desk like a ghost, finished the last hour of work on autopilot, and drove home. Halfway there, my phone buzzed again. This time, a notification from a mutual friend's social media. Marissa had posted a vague, dramatic status. Hard lesson. Some people will burn you and still call you the villain. Protect your peace. My stomach dropped. It wasn't explicit, but it was aimed. It was bait. It was her preemptively framing herself as the victim before the truth landed. I didn't comment. I didn't react. I just took a screenshot and saved it. Then, 10 minutes later, another message came through. This one from Marissa directly. I heard you're meeting with the bank. Don't do something stupid. I stared at those words until the letters blurred. Because that wasn't just paranoia. That was fear. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Eric and turned my phone to silent. Then I sat at my kitchen table staring at the clock, knowing that in less than 24 hours I would be sitting in a bank office while someone clicked play on a recording, one that could finally clear my name. And I couldn't stop thinking about one thing. If the bank was about to hand me proof that it wasn't my voice, what exactly was Marissa so desperate to stop? The next morning, I took the day off work and drove to the Redwood Bank branch on Providence Road. I got there 20 minutes early and sat in the parking lot with my hands resting on the steering wheel, trying to slow my breathing. Part of me was relieved. Another part of me felt like I was walking into a courtroom where my entire character was on trial. At 9:58, I walked inside. The branch smelled like carpet cleaner and printer toner. A flat-screen TV on the wall played a muted loop about savings accounts and retirement planning. Like anyone in that room had a peaceful enough life to think about retirement. I checked in, gave my name, and the teller's face changed slightly. Recognition. Not of me personally, but of the situation. Like my file had been flagged as complicated. A few minutes later, a woman in her 40s with a sleek bob haircut approached. "Daniel Reeves?" she asked. "Yes, I'm Priya," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm. "Thank you for coming in. This way." She led me to a small office with a glass door. Inside were 2 chairs, a desk, and a computer monitor angled away from the seating area. Another man sat in the corner, older, wearing a blazer and a lanyard. "This is Trent," Priya said. "Fraud specialist." Trent nodded. "Mr. Reeves." I sat down, trying to keep my face neutral. My heart was thudding so hard I was sure they could see it. Priya opened a folder. Physical paper, finally. Something real. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to acknowledge how difficult this has been. You did the right things. You reported promptly, documented everything, and escalated appropriately. I wanted to believe her. I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing how badly I needed to hear that. Just tell me what you found," I said. Trent slid a document across the desk. "This is a preliminary findings summary. We'll also be issuing formal correction letters to the credit bureaus, and a letter stating the accounts were confirmed unauthorized." I looked down. The words "confirmed unauthorized activity" were printed in black and white. My chest tightened and I had to swallow before I could speak. "So it's official," I said. Priya nodded. "Yes." I ran my eyes over the page. It listed the dates, the new account opening, the limit increase, the change of address request. It listed teleserve voiceprint authentication mismatch on 2 of the 3. "Mismatched," I repeated, looking up, meaning it wasn't me. Trent leaned forward slightly. "Correct. Your enrolled voiceprint does not match the caller on the account opening and address change calls. The limit increase call is less clean due to audio quality, but it still does not match within acceptable confidence." I let out a breath. I didn't know I'd been holding for weeks. "Then why did your system approve it?" I asked, the anger finally surfacing. Priya didn't flinch. "We're investigating that internally. You're right to be upset. Our system should have protected you." My fingers tightened around the edge of the paper. And the second voice. Trent glanced at Priya, then nodded as if they'd agreed on how much to share. Trent turned the monitor toward me slightly. "We can't give you a copy of the audio today. That's policy. But we can play a portion so you understand what we documented." My mouth went dry. "Play it," I said. Priya clicked something on the computer and Trent adjusted the volume. Then he hit play. A recorded voice filled the office. Female, mid-30s maybe, trying a little too hard to sound confident. Not my voice, not even close. "Hi, yes, this is Daniel Reeves," the voice said. My stomach flipped at hearing my name in someone else's mouth like that. A bank representative in the recording asked security questions. The caller answered quickly, but not smoothly. There were tiny hesitations where you could hear the wheels turning. Then faintly, like a whisper behind a door, a second voice spoke. A man's voice. Not the bank rep. Not the caller. The background voice said, "Say your mom's maiden name. Say it now." The caller repeated it. The bank rep asked for an address. There was another pause, and the background voice murmured, "Use the old apartment, the one on file." The caller repeated it. I felt my skin go cold. It wasn't just fraud, it was coached fraud. Like watching someone cheat on a test using answers fed through an earpiece. Trent paused the audio. "That," he said quietly, "is what we noted." I stared at the frozen sound wave on the screen, so somebody was literally telling her what to say. "Yes," Priya confirmed, which supports that the caller did not possess independent knowledge consistent with the account holder. My hands started shaking, not from fear now, but from the mix of rage and vindication. "Can you tell who the background voice is?" I asked. Trent's expression stayed careful. "We can't identify individuals from recordings as a bank. We can only compare to your voice print and document anomalies. But you can confirm it wasn't me," I said. "Yes," Priya replied, unequivocally. I closed my eyes for a second. I thought about my mom's face across the dinner table, my stepdad's suspicion, my sister's cautious tone, Noah asking if we were going to be okay. I opened my eyes. "I need the letters," I said. "All of them." Priya nodded. "We're printing them now. Also, your balances will be reversed. The new account will be closed. The limit increase will be removed. And we're placing an extended fraud block on your profile," Trent added. "You'll also receive a case reference confirming the debt is not yours. If any collector contacts you again, you provide that reference." I sat back, suddenly exhausted. "How long until my credit reflects it?" "Typically 30 to 45 days, Priya said. "Sometimes sooner." 45 days. I could handle 45 days. I'd already survived weeks of this nightmare with nothing but my own word. Priya looked at me. "One more thing, Daniel. Given the involvement of call recordings, if you need documentation for law enforcement, we can respond to a formal request." I nodded slowly. "My attorney will request it." Trent's eyebrows lifted slightly, as if that was the right answer. When they handed me the printed letters, my hands steadied. Paper has weight. Paper doesn't change its story depending on who's listening. I thanked them short, controlled, and walked out of the bank like I'd just stepped out of a storm shelter and found the neighborhood torn up, but the house still standing. In my car, I called Eric. "They confirmed it," I said. "Voice print mismatch, unauthorized." They played part of the audio. There's a second voice prompting the caller. Eric didn't sound surprised. He sounded satisfied. "Good. Don't do anything impulsive. Bring those letters to me. We'll decide the next steps." "What steps?" I asked, though I already knew. "Police report follow-up," he said. "Potential civil action. And Daniel, if your ex is actively defaming you, we may send a cease and desist with the bank confirmation attached." My jaw tightened. "I don't even care about winning against her," I said. "I just want my name back." "Then we move strategically," Eric replied. I drove straight to my mom's house. I didn't call ahead. I didn't want a committee meeting. I wanted a simple moment of truth. When my mom opened the door, her eyes flicked over me, uncertain. "Daniel," she asked, "is everything okay?" I held up the envelope from the bank. "We need to talk," I said. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd felt judged and small just days before. My stepdad was in the living room watching TV. When he saw the bank envelope, he got up and came over, cautious. I slid the letter across to my mom first. "Read it." She read silently. I watched her face change line by line. Confusion, then tension, then a kind of stunned stillness. Her hand went to her mouth. My stepdad leaned in and read over her shoulder. His jaw tightened, then loosened as if his brain didn't want to accept how wrong he'd been. My mom looked up at me with wet eyes. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Daniel, I'm so sorry." I didn't gloat. I didn't say I told you so. I just nodded because the truth was, I didn't want an apology as much as I wanted the reality back. The version of my life where my own mother didn't look at me like a suspect. It wasn't me, I said quietly. It never was. My stepdad cleared his throat. So, who did it? I held his gaze. Someone who knew my information. Someone who could answer some questions and needed help with others. The bank heard a second voice coaching the caller. My mom went pale. Marissa, I'm not making accusations without law enforcement, I said, careful. But the bank confirmed I didn't make the calls. That's what matters right now. My mom shook her head slowly, like she was rewinding every conversation she'd had with Marissa. She looked me in the eye, she said. She told me you were lying. I know, I replied. My stepdad swallowed. What are you going to do? I looked down at the letter again. First, I'm going to protect Noah, I said. Second, I'm going to let my attorney handle the rest. My mom reached across the table and took my hand. I should have believed you, she said. I squeezed her hand once. Just don't let her rewrite me again, I said. That night I called my sister and sent her a photo of the letter. She went quiet, then said, I feel sick. I'm so sorry. I should have shut it down when it started. Just shut it down now, I told her. That's all I need. The next part was the hardest, not because it was dramatic, but because it was delicate. Noah. I wasn't going to sit him down and dump adult betrayal into his little world, but I also wasn't going to let him absorb the idea that his dad was irresponsible. So the next time I had him for dinner, we were building a Lego set on the living room rug, and I said casually, hey buddy, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes about other grown-ups. If you ever hear something confusing about me, you can always ask me, okay? He looked up, eyes serious. Like money stuff? My chest tightened. Yeah, I admitted. Like money stuff. He nodded slowly. Mom says you forget things. I took a breath and kept my voice gentle. I don't forget you, I said, and I take care of my responsibilities. Sometimes people say things when they're upset. But you and me, we're okay. He stared at me for a moment, then went back to snapping Lego pieces together like he'd accepted what mattered most. 2 days later, Eric sent a formal request to the bank for records preservation and a law enforcement cooperation letter. He also contacted the detective assigned to my identity theft report and provided the bank's findings. Then Eric sent Marissa's attorney a letter. Short, professional, and brutal in its calmness. It included the bank's confirmation and demanded that all defamatory statements about me being a deadbeat or irresponsible with money stop immediately, including social media insinuations. I didn't get to see Marissa's face when she read it, but I felt her reaction anyway, because within hours her social media went quiet. Not I'm taking a break quiet, deleted post quiet. Like someone had suddenly realized the stage lights weren't friendly anymore. That weekend at our custody handoff, Marissa didn't meet me at the curb with crossed arms. She stood farther back, near her front door, like she wanted distance. When I stepped out of my car, she didn't smirk. She didn't perform. She just stared at me with a tight expression that looked like anger trying to hide behind control. Hi, I said, plain and polite. She didn't reply immediately. Noah ran to me, and I lifted him into a hug, breathing him in like a reset. Marissa finally spoke, low. So you're really doing this? I'm handling fraud, I replied. Yes. Her eyes flashed. You're trying to destroy me. I kept my voice even. I'm trying to protect myself and our son. She took a step closer, then stopped. You think you're so perfect, she hissed. I looked at her and realized something that hit me like a quiet wave. She wanted a fight. She wanted emotion. She wanted me to explode so she could point and say, see, he's unstable. I didn't give it to her. I'll communicate through the parenting app from now on, I said. Have a good weekend. Her mouth opened like she wanted to spit something sharper, but Noah was watching, and even Marissa cared about appearances. So she said nothing. And in that silence I felt the power shift. Not because I'd won, but because the truth had finally taken control away from her storytelling. Over the next month, the bank followed through. The balances dropped to zero. The fraudulent account disappeared from my credit report. The late payment marks were removed. My score climbed back up like a bruised thing healing. Collections stopped calling. The world got quieter. And in that quiet, I learned what this whole thing had really been about. It wasn't just money. It was identity. Marissa didn't just want to spend on my credit. She wanted to spend my credibility. She wanted to buy herself a clean narrative by charging me with the dirt. And for a while she almost succeeded because people are quicker to believe a bad story than to wait for the slow truth. What saved me wasn't a clever trick. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't public humiliation. It was evidence. call recordings, voice verification, official letters, a system imperfect as it was that left a trail she couldn't charm away. If there's a lesson I took from this, it's not trust no one. I refuse to live like that. It's this. When someone tries to ruin you with a story, don't race them with another story. Don't scream. Don't post. Don't beg. Build a file. Get it in writing. Let the truth be heavier than their voice. And once you have it, once you can prove what happened, don't use it to burn them down. Use it to set boundaries so solid they can't reach you again. Because the most satisfying kind of justice isn't watching someone fall apart. It's watching their grip on your life finally let go.